There's a ghost haunting America's strip malls, and its name is Panera Bread. Walk into most Panera locations today, and you'll find something eerily familiar, yet completely wrong. The booths are still there, the bread smell lingers, the Wi-Fi still works, but the soul is gone. The energy has been sucked out. What was once America's living room has become America's waiting room, a place people pass through rather than inhabit. This isn't just another story about a restaurant chain declining. This is the story of how corporate America accidentally created the perfect third place, that magical space between home and work where community happens, and then systematically destroyed it in pursuit of quarterly profits. Panera Bread didn't just lose customers. It lost its identity, its purpose, and its place in American culture. And the way it happened reveals everything wrong with how we treat the spaces that matter most to us. What we're about to uncover is how a revolutionary idea about how Americans could eat, work, and connect got hijacked by private equity vultures who turned a cultural phenomenon into just another struggling chain restaurant. The story begins in 1987, not with grand ambitions to change American dining, but with a simple family bakery in the suburbs of St. Louis that was about to invent the future accidentally. The St. Louis Bread Company was the brainchild of Ken Rosenthal, a former construction company owner who wanted to create something different from the sterile fast food that dominated American suburbs. The original location on Kirkwood Road was tiny, cramped, and perfect. Fresh bread baked on-site filled the air with yeast and possibility. Customers lingered over coffee and sandwiches. Students found quiet corners to study. Without realizing it, Rosenthal had created something that American suburbs desperately needed, but didn't know they were missing. What Rosenthal had unknowingly created was a truly revolutionary template for American community building that would fundamentally reshape how an entire generation of suburban Americans thought about public spaces, meaningful social connection, and the transformative role that shared food experiences could play in fostering genuinely authentic, daily human interaction. By the early 1990s, St. Louis Bread Company had expanded to a dozen locations across Missouri. But the real transformation came in 1993, when Au Bon Pain acquired the company for $23 million. Au Bon Pain's leadership, led by Ron Scheich, immediately recognized they had purchased something extraordinary. Scheich understood that St. Louis Bread Company had solved a problem that most restaurant chains didn't even know existed. Americans, especially suburban Americans, lacked what sociologist Ray Oldenburg called third places, community gathering spots that weren't home or work. European cafes served this function, but American suburbs offered only shopping malls and chain restaurants that encouraged quick turnover. The decision to rebrand as Panera Bread in 1997 wasn't just about national expansion, it was about scaling a social innovation. Scheich's vision was remarkably sophisticated. Combine the convenience of fast food with the ambiance of a neighborhood cafe and the food quality of a European bakery. The timing was perfect. By the late 1990s, laptop computers and early internet culture created a new class of mobile workers who needed places to work outside traditional offices. Coffee culture had taught Americans to view cafes as productive spaces, and suburban sprawl had created communities full of people who wanted gathering places that felt more authentic than mall food courts. Most importantly, Panera was among the first chains to offer free Wi-Fi, transforming their locations into unofficial co-working spaces years before anyone used that term. This wasn't just a convenience, it was a cultural revolution. The food supported this social mission perfectly. Bread bowls filled with soup created meals that took time to eat, encouraging customers to stay rather than grab and go. The "you pick two" concept offered endless customization while maintaining predictable pricing. Everything felt healthier and more substantial than traditional fast food. By 2005, Panera had exploded to over 1,000 locations nationwide. The cultural impact was enormous. Panera locations became study halls for college students, satellite offices for remote workers, and meeting spots for suburban communities. Business people conducted informal meetings over bread bowls instead of expensive restaurant lunches. By 2005, Panera had become more than a restaurant chain. It had evolved into America's unofficial public square, where democracy happened over soup bowls, where strangers became neighbors over shared tables, and where the simple act of breaking bread together restored something essential that modern suburban life had lost. At its peak, Panera wasn't just successful. It was culturally essential. The chain had become part of American suburban infrastructure, as fundamental to community life as libraries or community centers. Then came July 2017, and everything changed. JAB Holding Company, a German private equity firm, acquired Panera for $7.5 billion in one of the largest restaurant buyouts in history. JAB's business model was simple and predictable. Acquire beloved food brands, optimize them for maximum profit extraction, and either sell them for huge returns or milk them for cash flow. The $7.5 billion price tag wasn't just payment for restaurants and real estate. It was the cost of purchasing thousands of community gathering places, millions of customer relationships built over decades, and the intangible cultural value that Panera had created in towns and neighborhoods across America, all about to be monetized. For Panera, the changes began immediately. Fresh bread baking, the cornerstone of Panera's identity, was the first casualty. JAB began centralizing bread production in regional facilities and shipping partially baked loaves to stores for finishing. The cost savings were significant, but the soul of what made Panera special began evaporating. Soup preparation followed the same trajectory. Recipes that had been made from scratch in each location were replaced with pre-made soups, delivered in bags, and reheated on site. The famous mac and cheese became a frozen product dunked in boiling water, a change that would eventually become a viral scandal. Menu simplification eliminated dozens of items that had developed cult followings. Regular customers found their favorite items gone with no explanation. Portion sizes shrank while prices increased, the classic private equity maneuver of improving unit economics at the expense of customer value. Most damaging to Panera's core identity, JAB began optimizing locations for delivery and takeout rather than dine-in experience. Tables and comfortable seating were removed to make room for delivery pickup areas. The warm, community-focused atmosphere that had defined Panera was systematically dismantled in favor of operational efficiency. What JAB failed to understand was that Panera's customers weren't just buying sandwiches and soup. They were purchasing belonging, routine, and connection to their communities. And when those intangible values disappeared, no amount of operational efficiency or cost-cutting could compensate for the loss of social infrastructure people had grown to depend upon. By 2019, longtime Panera customers began noticing that their neighborhood gathering place had become something else entirely. A fast food restaurant with delusions of grandeur and prices that no longer matched the experience. The final blow to Panera's reputation came through a series of scandals that revealed how far the brand had fallen from its original values. The charged lemonade controversy was particularly damaging because it revealed Panera's complete disconnect from its health-conscious customer base. The chain introduced highly caffeinated lemonades containing more caffeine than energy drinks, without adequate warning labels. Multiple lawsuits alleged that the beverages contributed to cardiac events and deaths. The viral TikTok video showing a Panera employee dunking frozen mac and cheese bags into boiling water was devastating precisely because it exposed the gap between Panera's carefully maintained image and its actual food preparation methods. Customers who had paid premium prices for what they believed was fresh, made-from-scratch food discovered they had been buying reheated frozen meals. The scandals weren't just public relations disasters. They represented the complete betrayal of a social contract that Panera had spent decades building with customers who trusted the brand to prioritize their health, safety, and well-being over profit margins, revealing how thoroughly private equity ownership had corrupted the company's original mission and values. These scandals represented the complete collapse of trust between Panera and its customer base. The brand that had built its reputation on transparency, quality, and community values had become just another corporate food operation hiding behind marketing. Today, Panera exists in a strange liminal space between what it was and what it's becoming. Many locations sit half-empty during what should be peak hours. The Wi-Fi still works, but the sense of community is gone. The food is still technically edible, but it no longer feels special or worth the premium pricing. Food industry analyst John Gordon puts it this way: Panera lost its North Star. It was never just about the food, it was about creating spaces where people wanted to be. Once they optimized that away, they became just another restaurant chain competing on price and convenience, and they're not very good at either. The tragedy of Panera's decline isn't just about one company's missteps. It represents the systematic destruction of American third places by financial engineering that prioritizes short-term profits over long-term community value. Panera had accidentally created something precious: authentic community gathering spaces that served a genuine social need in suburban America. By reducing these spaces to mere food delivery mechanisms, JAB didn't just damage a brand, they eliminated crucial community infrastructure that millions of Americans had come to depend on. The empty dining rooms scattered across American suburbs serve as archaeological evidence of a failed experiment in prioritizing short-term financial extraction over long-term community value, proving that some things, trust, atmosphere, social connection, cannot be efficiently optimized, artificially recreated, or easily replaced once they have been systematically destroyed by corporate greed. Perhaps most tragically, there's no obvious replacement for what Panera once provided. The specific combination of affordable food, comfortable seating, reliable Wi-Fi, and community atmosphere that Panera perfected doesn't exist anywhere else at scale. So, can Panera recover? The fundamental challenge is that rebuilding trust and community takes years, while destroying it takes months. The customers who once considered Panera their third place have found alternatives or simply given up on the concept entirely. Panera's story serves as a warning about what happens when financial optimization meets community-focused businesses. Some things, trust, atmosphere, community connection, can't be efficiently scaled or artificially recreated once they've been destroyed. In the end, Panera didn't just lose customers, it lost its reason for existing. And in a country already struggling with social isolation and community disconnection, that loss feels bigger than just another corporate failure. It feels like the death of a gathering place we didn't realize we needed until it was gone.